Hi, this is Dr. Ahmed Mustafa, business management consultant freelancer. I was asked to prepare a presentation about this topic of problem solving approach and explain this approach, this scientific approach of how and what are and how we make a derivation for writing a problem statement report about a problem and what we should do and what are the steps and the structural way for making and approaching into a solution approach for this kind um, of, uh, um, of approach around. So I will start in here using MindJet software application. Here we are having a problem-solving approach. It's a scientific, and it's consisting in a structural way of about 8 steps or 8 phases, and each one of them containing a procedural steps or a fulfillment by responses to the questions needed for this thing around. So I will start now with the first phase. It's called problem finding, and here we will start to figure out this by the questions. We go through it, and we are having the questions that we collect in here about the data, and I'm going to go through details about each one to explain what kind of data we are looking for in each step. So starting for problem finding, first question, what your customer wants you to improve and enhance. And this question you will not be able to answer it unless you analyze the customer complaints, and we call that the golden mine, because when you analyze the complaints of the customers, you would be able to come up with what they want you to improve, what's your own problem, what's your own weaknesses, and you might could come up with new ideas about to improving and developing what you need to do to develop and to enhance in your own operations to present products and services in general. So that is the first question. Second question, what could they be doing better if you could help them? How you are going, the meaning of this question is how you are going to perform better, how you are going to perform better, and how you can enhance your services delivered and rendered to the customers in general. Who else you could help using your core competences? Of course, every organization usually target a certain target customers in the market. But from time to time, you should actually consider when you are transitioning between cycles and your business cycles or your steps in performance, what other segments and what are other markets possible and probable for you that you can actually present your services better, so that can expand your diversification strategy, for example. Or it might actually takes you into a conglomerate strategy. So, but you can't do this unless you monitor the other markets, and you are being aware of what's going on in other markets and other customer segments. And if you could actually present to them any help or support them somehow to for delivering any services for your product could serve them better or something like that. So this is how goes on to this. What are your small problems that could grow to bigger ones? And of course, that is only when you are based on uh, fulfilling and monitoring to your operations. And if you are actually being able to monitor your smallest problems and knowing how to deal with them so they don't grow into bigger ones actually. So that is only coming from that you are having um, a better managerial information system, for example, or that you are being able to figure out the big picture of your own internal environment of your own organization. So this is very important also. So you can do this by building up a managerial report system, information system, whatever the workflow goes on, overlapping between the different operations and functions inside your own internal environment of your own organization. So this is very important, of course, consideration perspective. Okay. The fifth question: what slows your work or making it operating it difficult? Another transformation to this question, practically speaking, we can ask the question of what blocks you or what draws you backwards and not making you being able to be faster responsiveness to the market locally or globally. So sometimes you might could having problem in communications. Sometimes you have some other managerial problems. So are you aware of those kinds of problems? Are you aware of how to handle them? Do you have solution or possible solutions for it or not? This is the issue. Why do you often fail? Well, that is also some sort of a tough question. But let's say failures can be a derivation for new solutions and new directions into the future, for not repeating the same steps or the same recipes that drift you away from your own strategic objectives. So learning from the past and learning from your past experiences and learning from your mistakes is not something to forget or something to not consider in your own future. They do have a future impact, and if you use them well by analyzing and trying to stick to logical way of thinking, I guess you would be able to figure out a success or even a better performance for your own organization, or for not those failures to be repeated again. If it's going to repeat again, this is a very, very bad sign. So that means you are not evolving, or there is something wrong for your own communication with the external environment. So and usually it's not a good sign. So if there is same failure, that means you are repeating over and over a same mistake, and we don't want that, and you don't want that. So you have to consider when you go back to revise old reports and old events, and how did you react to them, you learn about how you are going on and how you are going on to the future. And that is very important to study and to consider, because you don't want to repeat the same problem over and over again. And there are no guarantees by any means that you would be able to handle them as before. You don't have guarantees, and you don't have assurances for that. So not always the same problems when it's repeated. That does mean that you would be able to handle it the same way ever. or that the solution actually will work. And as we having a very concept that we mention sometimes, and they say it's actually a nice quota that say if it works, don't fix it. So that there is something if you are doing and it's building up a good relationship with your customer, for example. So do not do anything wrong to this relationship since it's working fine, and it's not intruding anything with the customer relation. So this is an example, I mean. Learning from your past is important for the future, to be aware of taking a better decision, and so that will indirectly lead you into a better performance for your organization in general. How can you improve your quality? Of course, quality is a very big topic, and we talk here about how to minimize cost and same time delivering a high quality product or service. And this is a usual thing of how to continuously improving your quality of your product of your service, and this is very important. But it's not coming from space or emptiness. It has to be taken, like for example, if you are implementing the total quality management principles of Deming, for example, that would be nice also to consider such kind. And nowadays that are things most organizations care about, like taking the ISO certifications, parameters and standards for assuring of their high quality to deliver their products and services, and that is a good thing. So you need to figure out those kinds of problems, because if you are not working on that, it might not be reflect a positive public image for yourself, or there is a problem about your quality, so you have to consider those kind of quality management aspects to be implemented somehow on your production of your products and services, and that is very important actually. What your competitors do and you could do it better than them, and that is a question when we are actually considering a problem for us from competitiveness with other competitors, and we don't know what to do about that. So this issue is important, and we actually, when we are working on competitor analysis and preparing some sort of scenarios and writing strategies about competitors or competitiveness strategy, we ask a lot of questions about what our customers, what our competitors actually are not doing, and the starting point for making getting out the deviation weaknesses of competitors or our other competitors and what they don't do good. That is a starting point for you to start changing your direction actually. In the same time, it could help you to develop and get out from a lot of problems internally. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it's good to do that. So for that reason, you should ask yourself a question of your competitive advantage that actually can make you do something others can't do. If you could find something like a surface or something good, you would actually make a better performance in the market. As an example for this, I'd like to mention something, and maybe you might not realize it, but let's say when you order, for example, for any kind of any meal, and you ask for it to be delivered to your home delivery, and when the delivery guy is coming to you and he delivering to you your beloved meal, and he give with your meal, he give you a nice fork, a nice spoon, a nice small plastic knife, that and some tissues, and he's here actually giving you something in the delivery as a value added, which means that he's caring about delivering the good meal for you in a good way. Maybe it's very small thing, and maybe some companies or some restaurants or some delivery makers, they don't care about that, but actually it's a value added, and I consider this to be a customer value. It's a means of showing him that you are respecting him. So it's intangible, actually. I know it's very costly to you, but or for organizations or firms or whatever, small, but it reflects a very big deal of a strategic public image for yourself. When you are presenting your product, you are presenting some sort of a value added, and that can build a good relationship with your customer. And please don't blow that. You need that. That can be reflected into your own sales revenue by the repeated order every day, and that is a good thing for you. So companies needs to think and consider for these little things that drive a customer value, and it can build a very good relationship with customers. And maybe competitors don't care about that, because they just only thinking about minimizing costs, and they don't consider increasing their market share. So when you stop at that for a while and you think about it, I guess you would actually get what I'm talking about. That those small things, although I know it's very costly for you, but they mean something, and they mean market value for yourself indirectly. So this is what is meant by you work on what the customers do, and you could do it better than them. That is what I wanted to say about this point. So this is important consideration. What is frustrating and irritating? And in the surrounding of what's going on with you, you need to figure out when you feel frustrated and irritated, and you are sometimes you are clueless. You don't know what to do. You have plenty of problems. You don't know what to do, and you need to think about something. So here you come to transform into an important topic we teach in management, which is creativity and innovation, and making brainstorming. And thanks to MindJet now, they gave us their great software that help us to make brainstorming and creativity, and using a lot of things to study our mind and to open our mind to all possibilities and release our mind and all our thoughts. And that will help us somehow, directly or indirectly, to approach into something. So you could pass through very hard times and you don't know what to do. So here you need to clear your mind, and you need to gather up your thoughts and think about your problems one by one. to approach into solutions. And you can do that by using MindJet or Excel spreadsheets, or you can use drawing and crafting, and you can do system thinking, and you can do a lot of other activities. And there are plenty and plenty of studying for problems, and there are plenty and plenty of approaches you can use actually, until you could like this approach I'm explaining right now. You don't have to give up about that. I passed through plenty of problems studying for my clients, and sometimes I don't find the solutions right away. It takes time sometimes. So you work on research, you work on using plenty of approaches to use trial and errors until you find probabilities and you find other scenarios that could be possible to solve a solution. But here you are just only going to be sometimes drawbacked because of there is a problem in front of you. So you don't need to panic somehow. You need to take your time and to study this problem and to find the way that could actually give you and declare to you what you should do next. Okay, so we came here to the point of the problem finding and what questions and what aspects. We explained those questions in the first phase. So we go now to the second phase, and this is a very critical issue. It's called problem definition. When you sat down and you found a problem, it's very important for the first thing to diagnosing is to put a definition for this problem definition, and use the best ideas your competitors have had. Maybe this problem you can role play it if it actually happened to one of your competitors, and what they might actually do about it. So this is a way to make a definition about this problem and how to deal with it. Understanding customer needs in more details. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned in the first phase of problem finding that customer needs, you would not be able to find it unless with two things. Either you study the customer complaints, and this is the golden mine, as I mentioned, and you will come up with the ideas of what actually the customers are looking for. This is one source. The second source is making marketing researches, and you make surveys and questionnaires, and you start to communicate with your customers and your clients who bought your product before, or you try to approach to them and you try to talk to them and come up with any sort of ideas. They think that these ideas are you could actually use them to improve yourself and improve your product and services. Okay, so understanding customer, and this is why we have also a subject called consumer behavior. So even using observation theories, for example, and observations of why customers buy certain kinds of products and don't buy other products, or they don't buy certain other kind of services, for example. So you would not be able to do that unless you use something like consumer behavior. This is an example of trying to understand the customer needs in more details. If you don't have the time for this, you can hire a consultant to do this for you, or you can ask your marketing analysts to do this part, and the marketing research analysts to do this part if they could, and they start to approach into this phase to be completed, and this is important. Know what has already been tried before. You need to find new things and new perspectives. And when you actually make a new product, well, from time to time, organizations think about changing their brands, for example, to make it more colorful or more attention to customers. So it's delighted, and but actually you need to know the right movements when to do that correctly, because sometimes when you change your brand, for example, you might could lose your customer base. Um, Maybe you might not think that colors can impact on on your market share, for example, but it does. So it does have an impact, and you need to plan that very well. So um, uh, and what happened before, or what made a success before, doesn't mean that it could be repeated in the future the same way with the same characteristics. You need to find new ways, and you need to find a renewal public image for yourself to grasp the attention of your clients, and they stay with you. They stay customer loyal to you by presenting to them a new, better customer value. You try to find out what they most care about, and you try to give them and use this variable to enhance the relationship with your clients in a new, better way, in a new, valuable way. So and this is why we use some sort of an analysis called comparative advantage analysis. And here we study the comparative advantages of yours, that you can actually change them from time to time to a better performance, and also it can be used to enhance your relationship with your customers. And this is the most important thing. Okay, so the last point in here, in the second phase of problem definition, is fully understand processes and its components, services or technologies that you may need to use in future. Replacing your systems that operating your processes, especially automatic processing, for example, you need to replace that from time to time, to enhance your responsiveness, to enhance your communication with the external environment, and which always asks for an increasing responsiveness rate, fast way and more express way, using social media, or maybe using a managerial information system, or maybe transforming your managerial information system to be a part of a new enterprise resource planning requirement, ERP, I mean. So those considerations takes place. You need to renew your systems, and also we have something in information technology called the conversion methodology, and that we transform between systems. It takes a time frame of from 6 months to usually 8 months, or maybe 10 months, something like that sometimes. And we do that gradually. In the same time, to transform the organizational system from a frame or from a system to another better performing system, and that thing is usually happen between any company and any organization converging its own managerial information system to from an old system to a new, better system, usually. So you need to consider that, because if you don't have, that can actually be a very big definition problem to you, and impact negatively on all managerial functions of your organization. So you have to be very aware of that, and to be prepared for this changing point. Here we come to the third phase: problem definition, problem identification. It's a second phase of asking questions about the problem you are confronting. Have you asked it enough why times to gather all reasons that help to describe explaining your confronted problem? Using the cause analysis, and the cause analysis simply by asking how many times you asked why, and each time you need to find the right answer to this why. So that help you to gather the reasons behind this problem. From other, those are two questions in here. They are the logical questions. They are too much logic. And people in general maybe dislike it, but let's learn some logic. What blocks you? So trying to understand the problem in front of you and what the constraints that it blocks you around, and then you gather them up or you write them down, and then you start thinking each one by itself about the solution for this passing of this constraint. That can help you to identify the right problem. And for example, when you can actually do that when you are applying the Pareto analysis for a problem identification tool. So we use that kind of a question like that. And another miracle question called, what made you so sure? What made you sure about that this thought is true to be the real cause of the problem? And each time you ask this question, you get a different answer. And this is how we think, and we are trying to think of understanding logics, and we are trying to understand what's going on, studying this problem, and remembering here that we are trying to identify this the problem itself and why it happened. So we start with the why, so we broaden our scope by the why, and then we start asking about the reasons behind that, and why it happened, and why I'm thinking that way, why I'm perceiving it right now, for example. So this is the third phase about the problem identification. Then we go on into the third part in here, the fourth part, the idea finding. So after I answer the previous phases, I come here to the generating ideas, brainstorming ideas. I can use MindJet to brainstorm my ideas and to brainstorm my options, brainstorming all probabilities and as possible. And I drive those probabilities. I drive them usually in brainstorming in general. You don't give time and enough time for studying the ideas. Maybe you lose some details because there is a very disruptive question we ask, especially in probabilities. when you are studying a problem, we ask you, have you actually covered all kind of probabilities and possibilities as you can? And you just say yes. And then when I audit and revise what you have done, I come up with something that you actually missed. So this, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. If you are very well understandable to the concepts of creativity approaches, you will come with all sorts of probabilities and scenarios also. And that is not an easy part, but let's say we work together as a one team. We come up with ideas that could be disruptive, that could be new, that could be integrative. And we do this brainstorming sessions for days, for weeks, for months, and as much we give it time, as much as we come up to generate all possibilities, and we approach to all possibilities as possible to come up with something. But if you don't study, for example, the customer complaints, or you are not considering the customer itself, or what might the customer and the client could ask for in the next year, for example, then you wouldn't be able to be prepared to position yourself in the next year about something you didn't thought about it. And here MindJet help us a lot in the brainstorming in general, and to do all of these generating ideas. So this phase we make the brainstorming over all of these aspects, perspectives, and strategic perspectives, and we come up into even the ideas that's impossible to be done, but actually wrong ideas and wrong assumptions could actually trigger new ones actually. So we keep rolling, and we keep operating and recycling, going through on all of these aspects, giving it time, and try to answer all possible questions as we can, because this is the way of getting out the minimum ideas that would actually save us from this problem, to crack down this problem. So this phase is phase 4, and then we come to phase 5. And from those coming up, we came about in here in the brainstorming, we can make the next step. And the next step in here is that each idea we make the selection, and the selection and evaluating the possible options. And here we put the options for every idea. We put the scenario based driving evaluation, making CBA, cost benefit analysis. If possible, to make feasibility studies to each option or probability or a scenario. Evaluate the savings to most losses. Because I could actually think, when I do those two parts in here, the derivation for the CBA and the feasibility study, I could come up into a very different aspect of choice, or of selecting criteria, which is picking up the option which save the minimum level of losses, and increase my savings, and we use that also sometimes in when we are making this analysis in crises, and to minimize the risks as much possible, to minimize the losses as much as possible. This is what I meant in here. So risk impacts evaluation to every option and to every probability, and this is why we make risk analysis. The choose should be to the most securing saving to our assets, lowest risky impact, and high beneficial, easier to be implemented. This is the criteria, and of selecting out from our choices. We come here to the next phase of the planning for the and here we work on some aspects in here. Start writing implementation plans for the option chosen expected, provide the tasks and activities, and decide about who do what, how, when, where, why to do. You gather up all these systems in the action plans, and this phase is to make the action plans for what to be done and how it's going to be done, who, when, to put the time frame, where and why. So you have to configure everything in this phase of planning. And next is sell the idea. If you can consider to provide business policies or charters that would help you implementing the expected plans, then prepare them by the legal affairs, for example. Provide enough analysis regarding fears of new changes. To put scenarios, and scenario analysis is a very important topic, but actually it's very advanced and very strategic in the same time. It needs a lot of studying and a lot of calculations and a lot of time. And you need to have a very creative team who can work on developing those kinds of scenarios, because as I mentioned, it's very advanced and needing a very good calibers team members. At least they are MBA holders, for example, to do this job. And it's critical and it's strategic for the survival of your organization, or for cracking down any further problems that actually could take place in the future that you don't know anything about. So you have to be prepared with scenario analysis and using scenario analysis. Provide expectations to resistance to change. Resistance to change is a very psychological problem, and it's sometimes the human resources and the staff dislike to change and resist the top management decisions. And we can actually measure that with plenty of criterias and plenty of variables through interviewing with the staff and measuring the trust issues and the trust parameters, and using also evaluating the motivation, and we can actually measure the motivation using a strategic survey questionnaire, and that also can reflect to us the resistance to change. Coming to the next question, how to reduce losses. Also, that is relevant to actually appear when we make the studies of using the scenario analysis. We can come up with how to reduce our losses from the risks that could happen or take place, and that based on how much business analysis you used for this. You can use gap analysis. You can use losses from using certain kind of services or something like that. So and how to renew your contracting with such services. That is you need to consider. Okay. How to reduce negative risks impacts in general. Okay. What are the resources needed to implement your previous planning? What do you need? And here we run something called resource audit. And this resource audit, we identify the organization needs, the human resources need, the operations needs, the financial resources needed for the plan we wrote in here, and how to cover up everything on all the scenarios also we derived in here to cover all of these things, aspects. So all of these aspects be included in here in the resources, and it's critical to be done and calculated for the future. The last step of the action, after taking approval from top management, starting implementing the plans to reduce the negative impacts of the confronted problems or crises. And here we come up to the last thing about the topic of problem solving, and I hope that this approach is straightforward enough to confront problems. Take care, everybody. See you soon.